Okay, so let's get right into it. I'd like for everyone just to take the pages that I've put there on each of the desks. I'd like us to talk about a coaching agreement. So everybody has got 2 pages, right? Does everyone have? Is there anyone perhaps without? Okay, so everyone is clear. So what we will need here is actually make sure that you have your pens. As we know, each time we come to an upskilling session, you must make sure that we have your notepad, which we've given you, as well as the learner guides, and we everyone has a hard copy of a coaching agreement, right? Okay, so perhaps if I may ask, what comes to mind when we speak after all these modules that we've done? What comes to mind when we speak about that coaching agreement? Yes. I think very insightful. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So when we speak about a coaching agreement, we actually are speaking about an agreement between 2 people. So the coach and coachee. And it's that relationship in which they put boundaries, as you rightfully said, boundaries and agreements that these are certain things that we both agree upon in order to make our relationship thrive. And it just spells out the purpose of what the relationship is about and how will we work together in order to achieve our main purpose. So in this instance, guys, remember I've mentioned that we are specifically on performance, and therefore this agreement is specific to what performance is about because we want to make sure that we close that gap, right? Why do you think we use it? Yes, and Thabang? Absolutely. And what if it is really not serving you? What would be the reasons if you find that the agreement is not working? Yes, absolutely, you are correct. So it may be that we may not be intentional. What else? Absolutely. So it is important. So what we are trying to say is that the reason why it is there, it is to serve you both, the coachee as well as the coach. Number 2, it is to make sure that we are clear of what are our responsibilities and what are the things that we both are contributing in order to make it a success. It is a document that is actually set up to get you to that level of success. So it is very important that both sides really get the benefit of what a coaching agreement is about. Well done. Okay, so what you are seeing in front of you is an example of a coaching agreement. And what do you see on it as you page through? Well done. Yes. Before seeing the life goals, what is it that you see there? Absolutely, yes. The agreement is between 2 parties. There is a coach or a coachee, which we sometimes, because of the upskilling purposes throughout 1 and 2, we've been saying the player. So there's a coachee, which is the player, and there's a coach. Now, once you see that, then what comes next around life goals? Yes. So, guys, remember life goals before you worked for Standard Bank. There was that life thing, that purpose that was driving you to actually get to a point where you find yourself a job in order to achieve that goal, right? So I'll make a typical example. When I came out, when I was in tertiary, because I started working for the bank when I was still doing my second year, in 2007, I went in because I wanted to get to a point where I build my grandmother a home. And you can't do that if you do not have the financial muscle, right? And therefore, it came to a point where I noticed that actually I need to get myself a job in order to stand on my own 2 feet and not rely on my grandmother for funds, but actually be the one who provides the home. And therefore, that's where Standard Bank came in. I had a goal. My goal was to actually stand and have a financial muscle and therefore ultimately buy a house for my build, not buy. Build a house. And that was exactly it. And I was very determined to make sure that I stand on my feet and make sure that I do not rely on her. A lot of the times, my whole first year, I noticed that this reliance on my granny is not going to work out, and therefore I had to make a plan. And therefore, that's when I got my job. I started working and I worked towards the plan. So you have thoughts in place. There's a vision that I was working towards. And in this instance, that is what we speak about when we speak about the first point, which is our life goal. There is something ultimately every day that gets you to wake up and get out of that bed and actually get to that seat and actually call clients or do your work in the back end. That is the goal, foremost purpose, that it actually has nothing to do with work, but it's actually something that you would like to do for yourself. There you go. And that brings us to then the second point. It speaks about work goals. Now, you will notice that there have been drives that we've been making as a department. Let me not say as a bank, as a department. We know that when a department has rand value to reach, that is our ultimate goal that we're striving to get. In this instance, with secured lending, reduction of the NPLs, non-performing loans, we need to make sure that we reduce accounts that are coming in, find ways in order to resolve for the customer, be it by PTP, be it by restructuring and getting proper other solutions that will get this client out of our book. So these are ultimate goals. This is what we're trying to drive and we're closing the gap on. So in this instance, it would be that which we reduction of NPLs as our goal that we're working towards, and that would be a focus between the coach and the coachee. Remember, these stats go from a level that is high to the granular level where it is individual stats, and therefore where I am may not be where the next person is. I may be actually at a higher advantage because maybe my roll forwards are actually better. But does it mean there's no room for improvement? No, of course not. We all have a role to play. So that when a leader says my team is performing, we need to understand why the best team members are performing. How did they get there? In as much as the bottom officers are not performing, how is it that they're not getting it? We need to understand the dynamics of the business. So it really doesn't mean that when an individual is actually performing well, it's okay, we let them go. No, coaching actually is for everyone. How do you get that individual who's performing outright to be a challenge to do better? How do you challenge the one who's not doing well to grasp off of the ones that are doing better, to absorb and become a leechy of all the information and actually strive to grow? Of course, there'll be certain behaviors that we will be dealing and removing. Remember, according to that performance formula that I taught you in module 1, that I taught you guys about in module 1. There are certain interferences that we will grab along the way, and we will remove and deal them and make sure that they are no longer interferences, because we would have had the right tools to deal with them. We would have had the right ways in order to make sure that should they reoccur again, then definitely, absolutely, we know what to do, whether my leader is here or not, because ultimately we should be having team members that are able to run even when you're out of the business, out on holiday, and your team is performing. So that's what we want ultimately. Number 3, things that we both will do in order to achieve our goal. We need to make sure that we both will do in order to make sure that we achieve our goal. These are agreements, honesty agreements. This is communication from both sides. We need to make sure that we both agree on certain things that we will both do in order to make sure that we achieve our goal. Number 4, it speaks about challenges. What are the challenges? What do you think are challenges? Not quite. So challenges are what are the things that we'll both commit to? And sometimes challenges can be things as simple as me not doing agreements and action plans that we both conclude on in our conversations. And that sometimes will get the other party to not to understand whether are you committed. So it sometimes creates perceptions, and therefore we need to make sure that we hold one another accountable. So even I, as your coach, I may say to you that I'll make sure that I submit what we agree on as an action plan onto the app 48 hours. But if I don't do that and I do it a week later, how do we then get the reassurance that you'll do it? So do you get what I'm saying? So it gets us to a point where we both are committing that when the relationship gets difficult because of one party not showing up, what are the consequences, or what are the agreements that we say we will do? Sometimes I've found situations where the leader and the officer, they don't agree. So when that comes into play, what are we both saying we will do in order to make the relationship thrive? So that's what it is according to things that we both agree on, as well as challenges. If challenges come, what are the things that we're going to do? So now comes the towards the end, responsibilities. In the same way, I have responsibilities, and the coach also has responsibilities. So I, as the coachee, would, for example, have the responsibility to go and work and make sure that action plans that we are going to agree on, I execute. I come back with feedback, keep track of what is happening, keep track of things that are happening in between until our next appointment date or our next set date to meet. It is important. Likewise, with the coach, they have things, they may have responsibilities in making sure they show up, responsibilities around limited confidentiality. And when I say limited confidentiality, we know that it is requirement that we report on things that are always on the platform, like stats, performance. Those things are on a public domain, and therefore we report on that. We track performance, we show stats, but however, there are confidential things where you find that I've found a confidant in you, and therefore for me to actually open up, it takes a lot. And therefore, if I, as a coachee, open up about things around, I'll say gender-based violence, for example, that is happening in my house, I think what the coach can do, they can recommend, because they are not experts also, they can recommend avenues in which you can touch on. But if the agreement here is that you will not open up about the issues that I have in my home around gender-based violence, the expectation is that we respect, that's where the confidentiality clause comes in, which is very important for us to have that close relationship with our people, you as leaders with your people. You don't want to hear news that, sometimes when you're listening to a story, on a bus going to the Gautrain coming from work, and everybody is talking, but then when you realize that the contents of the story sounds like my story and what is happening in my life, you then tend to have, lesser faith in the leaders that lead you. And therefore, guys, it's important confidentiality. We are a bank that actually stands firm on our values, and therefore it's quite important. So once you're done with that and you both are happy, because it is a dual agreement, and therefore once we're both happy, we then sign together and we keep it safe. Remember, this is not something that can be signed at the beginning of the year and once you want to go sign it again at the beginning of next year. No, it actually changes. Once we've reached a certain goal, we can then go back and say, hey, now that the focus has improved and we're reaching consistently this goal, what else can we look at? And therefore we then focus based on that, based on agreements that are put in place and business changes as well. So any questions on the performance coaching agreement? And now that there are no questions, I'm going to put you into pairs and you guys are going to go through the coaching agreement together. I'm going to give you roughly do examples, so a good 10 minutes, and then we're going to swap. And then we'll deal the questions, because I would love for you to really explore it so that you experience it from a coach perspective as well as the player's perspective. And therefore your time starts now. And now that we're done, and I think I've gone through each and every pair here, all 5 pairs, and I'd like for you to tell me what stood out for you. Absolutely. And you? What else? Great stuff. So is everybody learning from the takeouts that everybody has mentioned? Well done, guys. And we're ready to go to what we call the coaching cycle. Is everybody ready for that?